Electrocast.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Samantha Fox is a sexuality coach and licensed marriage and family therapist in New York. She's been in private practice for over a decade, working with individuals and couples struggling with sexuality, sexual issues, coming out later in life, and intimacy. Samantha specialises in working with women coming out later in life who need help processing feelings of internalized homophobia, guilt, shame, and struggle to embrace and embody their authentic selves. During our conversation, it was really clear that our paths had so many synergies, and by having conversations like this, maybe we can help other women to have the courage to be who they really are. Welcome, Samantha, to the Ethical Evolution.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you here as well. Now, for people who haven't heard of you or know what you do, can you tell us, please?
Yes, sure. So I am a sexuality coach, and I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist in New York.
Excellent.
So I wear two hats, coach and therapist, and mainly work with women. And my favorite population of women to work with are those that are coming out later in life or exploring their sexuality. And that's my specialty area.
Amazing. So tell us then, how did you happen to work with women in this particular demographic?
Yeah, sure. So I have my own story. It's a lived experience that got me here.
Yep.
So I came out myself at the age of 32. I was married. I had been married for 7 years at that time, had been with my husband altogether for about 10 years. And I had an awakening and met somebody and went through a difficult period of separation and divorce, had 3 little babies, and, just lived through this particular journey, which was quite messy. And got out of it and decided I needed to become a therapist. I had been in school to become a therapist prior to that, but hadn't finished because I started having children. And I've been with women since then. So it was 20 years ago, and just wanted to really kind of have like a full circle where I could give back to women that were going through what I had lived through.
Yeah, and this is where you and I align here. I've also lived that experience. However, not married, no children. I guess I was kind of lucky in that regard that I didn't have that element as part of my story. But I have had partners who have had that as part of their story. I must say it's probably one segment of the queer community that probably is the most judged and probably the most misunderstood. Would you agree?
Yes, I would definitely agree. I think I'm hoping, let's say, that it's getting a little bit better. I mean, I think with COVID, there's been a huge influx of this late in life community. And, I'm hoping that that's changing. But yeah, certainly 20 years ago when I came out, that was how it was too.
Yeah. And, for me in my experience, I had a partner who was married to a man, had children, yet was still married. And we were in our relationship. However, she was hiding who she was and who she really wanted to be with her family and everyone else. So it kind of felt like I had to go back into the closet to have that relationship. So the dynamic for everyone in that relationship gets really, really hard. And, most people would probably judge me for that relationship as well. But it gets really messy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And it reminds me of a question that one of my followers asked recently, which was, do established lesbians date lesbians or queer people that are coming out later in life? And my answer was, yeah, there's no general rule that they won't date you if you're coming out later in life, but you need to be out for an established lesbian to want to be with you. There's a good chance she's going to want you to be out, because you're not going to find her wanting to go back into the closet.
Yeah. It is super, super hard. And, in terms of having a relationship with someone like that, I know there are segments of the community who have their rules of who they will and won't accept in a relationship. But for me, it's all about the person and who they are. It's not about all the labels that are put on us. It's about your connection with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another big topic, is labels and have them, don't have them, how important are they? There's also like the pride in the label, and also not wanting to be labeled as any. Labels are for boxes, right? So broad spectrums, just like in everything. And unfortunately, our society is not built that way. And we've got all the constructs to keep us boxed in. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just going back to what you said a moment ago about how there being a resurgence of people in this demographic since COVID, do you think that comes back to, having that time to reflect and actually find what matters?
Well, I can say my coming out catalyst was 9/11.
All right.
So I was in New York City when that happened, and it shook me because I just, I was young. I was 32. I realized I might not be here tomorrow. And that really propelled me into this place where I just felt like I couldn't live like this anymore. And so I think that, yes, I think with COVID and with the pandemic, I think it's, there are many layers to it, right? People are now stuck in their homes. Their kids aren't going to school. They're with their spouses or partners full-time, 24/7. This is not the way it ever was before. So a lot of reality very quickly. And then also the fear, right? Who knows, at any moment, any of us can be taken away. And so I think it was, all of that kind of brought this, tsunami, I call it, tsunami effect of women coming out.
Wow. So really it's that reality check that we get, isn't it? That wakes us up to, what we really want in life. And yeah, I guess, for me as well, when I came out, it was like this light bulb moment. It was like this awakening, and everything just made sense. I was like, oh, right, well, that all makes sense now. And it was like everybody else got the memo but me, and no one else was surprised. Did you find the same thing?
I didn't quite have it that way. In fact, I was kind of surprised, and actually everybody was surprised. I had really the very perfect cookie cutter in every way kind of life. And people were quite shocked. And, I was very closeted in that I had been noticing things about my sexuality for many, many years, but they were not rising to a conscious level. So it was in my journals, which was under the clothing, away in the closet. And nobody knew except for, me somewhere in my subconscious, unconscious. So it was surprising. I was quite surprised at the time that it all happened.
Yeah. So let's then talk about the judgment and the shame that comes with that. Like when you actually make the decision to go, you know what, this is who I am and I'm going to come out. So there's a lot of shame that's held in that, because that's going to impact all of your relationships. You've got children, you've got a husband. you're like, oh my God, I'm going to uncouple my entire life and this is going to impact so many people.
Yep, that's what it was. That's what happened. Yeah, I certainly lost some people in there too. Interestingly, I'm not quite sure why, but the shame piece for me was very minimal. And I think that might just be somehow, I grew up in a family where being different was okay, and kind of encouraged, actually. And so, I didn't have that much shame, but I did have guilt for creating so much chaos in everybody's lives and hurting people, and judgment. Yes, there was judgment, and I lost family members on his side that I was very close to that never reconnected to me, which is just devastating for my kids. So yeah, I mean, this is all part of what keeps women also from taking the steps forward. They really struggle with all of that.
I know I know many women who stay in that, what you call a compulsory heterosexual life.
Heterosexuality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas I I love that term that you use, but I guess I call it conforming to society here. So, I found that, I dated heaps and heaps of men. None of it was working. I was like, what's going on here? I just couldn't understand it. And then boom, I was like, all right, got it now. But for those that are married, they want to stay there because they don't want to hurt others. And particularly where there's children involved, they think they're going to lose them.
Yes. And I'm sure that there are parts of the world where that would happen. And there very well might be. I'm not an expert on the laws of each state of this country, but I am sure that there are states where you might be at risk for losing your children, possibly still today. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I mean, it can be quite dangerous and very damaging. And it's just, I always say it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, this is really quite an undertaking when you are married.
Yeah. So when you have that realization and you go, okay, I'm attracted to women, there's some women who question that as well. Like they're like, am I bi? Am I gay? Like, what am I? How do you work through that?
So I like to give people a lot of space. I mean, I think there's two things that happen. There's realizing that you like women, and maybe you've met somebody and it's turning on this part of you and you're like, wow, I've never felt this before. And for women that have only been with men or that are married to a man, what happens for them is this place where they're like, what's reality? What's fantasy? Because this feels really good. And I've never felt like this before. And now I'm 55, right? And if this is reality, what does that mean about the last, 35, 45 years of my life? Was that a lie? And so it becomes a place where people get stuck, so that's one thing that women experience. And then the other piece is what you're talking about is like, how do I label myself, right? What am I? I'm married to a man. I've been with him. I've always been with men. I just like not straight. To me, that's just super spacious. Do you really need to know right this second? What if we can just step into not knowing and, get comfortable with that? And also sexuality is fluid, and not everybody is probably very few people are at either extreme completely, and so you're somewhere in there.
Yeah.
You're not straight.
Yeah.
Right.
I love your response to that because and labels are such a big thing in the community, and it drives me a little bit insane. I'm just going to say that because I'm someone who doesn't like labels. I think everyone's unique in their own way, and they should be allowed to express that however they feel. And also, what you've kind of mentioned there is that spectrum of how there's the scale and the spectrum of sexuality. You're never like fully one thing. There's a little bit of everything in all of us. So go with whatever feels right, I think when we start to put a label on it, that's where we create the anxiety and make things harder for ourselves when we can just be ourselves and express who we are.
Yes. And it's interesting because I've been hearing that, I can't remember, one of the women I'm currently working with said at her job, she's working with a younger person who may be like 35, and this woman's in her late 50s. And this person, when she came out to her, it was one of the first people she came out to, the younger woman identified, she said, "Oh, I'm queer." Great. And the older woman said, "I can't really use queer because that's a younger person's term."
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't think of queer that way. I think of queer is for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And then I also think that there are some women that go through a lot to come out and that might feel very, very identified with being lesbian. I identify as lesbian, right?
Yeah.
So, and queer, but lesbian, yes. And I'm really proud of that. And I worked really hard to get where I am.
Yeah.
And so there's also like the pride piece. Yes, it's a label, but I'll wear that label for now. And if I decide I want to change it, I can.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I also had that same experience where a younger person at work actually said, "Oh, I identify as queer." And I'm like, "Oh, awesome." And one of the senior executives said to me, "Oh, you're going to have to explain to me what exactly that is, because I need to get up to speed with all this stuff, because I chair the diversity and inclusion committee." I'm like, "It's all good, I got you." So I was like, it's trying to bring people into this sort of sphere of understanding what all these terms and labels mean. And, I do a lot of podcasts on that because I really want people to have that awareness and understanding so that they feel comfortable having those conversations and treat everybody equally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now you also do coaching with these women. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So after many years of being a therapist and having a lot of training, I developed two coaching programs. One is to work with women one-on-one. One is to work with women in a small group. And that's relatively new. It's just been in the last year, but it's so exciting and it's so rewarding. I just can't stop working. I'm working 7 days a week. I'm working as a therapist, and every minute I'm not working as a therapist, I'm doing something for my coaching, and I love it. So, I feel very honored to be able to journey with these women and give them tools to do a little bit of deeper diving into themselves and understand that the stories they've been telling themselves and the, beliefs they have are not necessarily coming from within, but they're coming from outside, and start to question what's right for them. And I have different ways of working with women to get them to a place where they really can be more embodied. And then it's just so rewarding. I get the stories back and get to celebrate with these women. So the coaching is just, I can't say enough good things about it. It really feels wonderful.
And I can tell you love it because you absolutely light up when you talk about it. So,
yeah, I love it.
And it makes me kind of go, can I come and join you? Because it sounds like fun. Yeah. So, and, I think for those women, it must be amazing for them to have a safe space to go to explore who they are, because, when you're in your everyday sort of life, it can be hard to find that space for yourself to actually find out who you are.
Yeah. When I came out, it was 2002. And I have to say I thought I was the only woman in the world to ever have experienced this. I felt so isolated and so alone. And in fact, I was able to find a group that did weekend workshops, a therapist who did weekend workshops for women who were married to men, but in love with women. Her name's Joanne Fleischer. She wrote a book, Married to a Man in Love with a Woman. I believe that's the name of it. And there were 20 women from all over the country. And it was amazing. And some of my best friends today are from that group back in 2000. And I think it was 2003 I did it. So being in community, having other people around you that have similar feelings, that are going through, just something similar, or just learning from the differences, right? And even for me to be with these women, I am also learning differences because my story was particularly messy, but some women have beautiful stories. I mean, they bring me to tears. These husbands are amazing guys that collaborate and help their partners to, some husbands even find me for their wife.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really quite, it's very surprising and admirable, these guys. So,
and that must be, a tough thing for a guy to be faced with, like they're married to a woman that they love. And after all these years, they get the news that not so into that anymore. That's got to be a real test to their manhood.
Yes, I totally agree. I think it is. I think for some women, it can be a place they kind of think about it in terms of, well, it would be worse if I were going to go with a different guy.
Yeah.
Right. And at least it's not a guy. It's a woman. So, but in fact, that's not the case. And I think for many men, it's actually worse when it's with a woman because they're emasculated. Right. And so that creates, a lot of discomfort and shame for them and feeling like there's something wrong with them. But the other thing I also want to say is that even though it might come as quite a shock, and I'm sure it does, it certainly did in my case, you don't go through a marriage for that long and actually have questions about your sexuality or be kind of disconnected from your sexuality and stay in this marriage and then come to this place where you realize it. And there's nothing, when you look back, there's nothing that reflects any of those problems. In fact, there are plenty of things, if you look at the marriage, that reflect it wasn't working well. We didn't have an active sex life. We didn't like our sex life. You didn't want to have sex with me. Or I just grinned and bared it and, got through. And so it's not that surprising if you're able to look back.
Yeah, so the indicators are generally always there, so it's never a real surprise in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if people want to find you and find out more about what you do, where can they go?
Yeah, so I am on TikTok as the Lesbian Curiosity Coach.
Oh, love it.
Yes, I am on Instagram at Curious Questioning Coming Out, no end. And then my website where I have my programs for women is called curiousquestioningandcomingout.com. And I also have a free mini course for women who want to break free from compulsory heterosexuality. So that's available through any of the social media platforms in the link in bio or on the website. It's plastered everywhere, so you can get your free mini course to break free. Right? We should have choices.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess one other thing I wanted to ask you was if there's a woman listening to this now who's married and is wanting to perhaps explore feelings that they're having towards women and they're scared and they don't want to do anything about it, what would you recommend they do?
So for that woman that isn't ready to do anything about it, I think the best thing to do would be to start to go on and just listen to some of the things. I mean, I give a lot of free content on my social media platforms. So start to just listen to some of these things and see if they resonate with you. see if you can build up a little bit of courage to take a step to, I'm happy to meet with anybody just for a free consultation, just to say hi and hear a little bit about where somebody is.
Yep.
Baby steps, really, right? The whole thing, looking at the whole thing is very overwhelming. And that's understandable, but just little small steps to moving forward, knowing that if you can do that, you're moving closer to your authentic self. And we only have one time through anyway in this particular human suit that we're in. And, it's worth it. It really is worth it to just be fully embodied and be able to live authentically.
Yeah. And, from your experience and the women that you work with, you can also share, that it's not so bad on the other side.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even tell you the joy, right? The screaming from the mountaintops that I hear. It is so fabulous, really fabulous. And that exists out there, and you can have that. And also, life is we hurt people. That's part of being in relationship. There is no such thing as being in a relationship where you don't hurt somebody. We do that all the time. And that's part of life, right? So don't let that hold you back.
Yeah. And, there comes a time in life where we've got to put ourselves first, don't we? And that's the other thing with women that have reached that stage in life. They're giving everything to everyone else, but what about themselves?
Yes, absolutely. So important.
Yeah. Well, I got the last big question for you, Sam. What's the change you'd like to see in the world, and how can we bring it to life?
Oh, gosh. I think we need so many. My mission here is to reach any woman who feels alone and hopeless about her attraction to women, and that she needs to keep stuffing it down. I would love, if there was something I could change, I would love to take away compulsory heterosexuality in the world, everywhere. That when you are born, there is no box that's placed upon you, and you just get to decide everything: who you love, who you are, how you identify, and that there are no boxes telling us what we should do, what we're supposed to do, what we need to do, what's expected of us to do. And while for some people that feels very safe, and I understand that, really, it takes away your freedom to be fully you from the moment you're born. So that's one thing, if I could change, I would love to.
I absolutely love that. And, this is it. We get so conditioned from when we're a child that a relationship is between a man and a woman, and that even to our gender and how we express it, like you're female and this is your pronouns are she, her, and it's not until we actually understand who we are that we can go, actually, no, that doesn't quite fit me. And if we could do that a hell of a lot sooner, we would save so much pain. So yes, I am so on board with you with that desire to take away those labels and those boxes and this conditioning that we get right from when we're born.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to say about it that makes me just crazy is if you think about it, right, what you just said, everything you just said,
yeah,
and you think about how many people, this is men and women now, we're just talking about humans, right?
Yeah.
How many people go through what you just said, right? Doing all the things that are expected because they're a he or a she, and they're supposed to be with a man if they're a woman, and vice versa. And they find themselves feeling anxiety and depression, and they don't know why, and they can't get out of it, and they can't really fully embrace the life they're in, and they can't reach their full potential because they're feeling all of these things. And then what happens? Then they go and they start taking medication, right? To take care of these feelings that they have that are not even theirs. I mean, they were placed upon them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the amount of money that's being made off of this construct. I mean, yeah, don't get me started.
Oh, she's fired up. And, I think you and I could talk all day on this because it's something that we're both very passionate about. And, geez, us both fired up, look out. So, Sam, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the ethical evolution. I've loved every second.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, really.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com.
Hey there, I'm DC. I host the rock podcast, Back to the Arena, The Interviews. It's about a 30-minute podcast where I talk one-on-one with a band who has released new music. You can find us on all the best podcast sites like Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you're a rock fan like me, subscribe today to Back to the Arena, The Interviews.
Electricast. Step inside the marketing mirror to uncover marketing secrets, discover gems, tactics, lessons, and campaigns you can use, next gen or fundamentals. Grab the marketing magic to improve your marketing and win more business. Electricast. Electricast.